It is good when a worthy person comes to power in every sense. But what to do if the ruler's tastes differ from those generally accepted in society? In the XXI century in democratic countries, the answer is quite simple: gather information, prove it, publicize it, and wait for the political effect. But what if such a ruler appears in an authoritarian country or even in the Middle Ages? To answer this question, I suggest you familiarize yourself with the story of the Chinese emperor of the Ming dynasty of the XV century Jiajing, against whom the famous conspiracy of concubines called Renyan was planned as an attempt to get rid of months of torment caused by the specific tastes of the ruler. When Zhu Haozong first succeeded his cousin Jeg on the throne in 1521 and adopted the new name Jiajing, many who had personally known the emperor before he ascended the throne shuddered unpleasantly. Rumors of Zhu Haozong's peculiar tastes and predilections persisted through the halls of the Forbidden City, and few in Beijing would want to verify the reality of these behind-the-scenes conversations. The name Jiajing itself can be translated as admirable serenity. Indeed, in the early months of his reign, the emperor restrained himself enough to live up to the imperial name. But then he began to smoothly push his line by changing several fundamental dynastic customs, causing the first disgruntled orthodoxies to appear at court who disagreed with the new trends. The first public discontent was clearly expressed already at the end of 1521, but the emperor did not tolerate the willfulness of officials and aristocrats, so he showed his true nature, dealing with opponents. Mass imprisonment in prisons. It can be said that from that moment, the delightful tranquility was interrupted and never began. The fact that the emperor had several wives and concubines was a standard phenomenon in China. The fact that none of the wives and concubines could deny the emperor his wishes is a consequence of the divine status of the ruler. The fact that hundreds or even thousands of concubines entering the Forbidden City found themselves in aggressive or powerless conditions, full of conspiracies, intrigues, and betrayals, but got their chance for elevation is also a well-known fact. So what made Emperor Jiajing different from other Chinese emperors? Jiajing, like many cruel rulers, was very afraid of death, so he became interested in Taoism and began to search for a magic elixir to acquire eternal life. And it was this elixir, or rather its search, that became the reason for the Renyan conspiracy, for together with prominent Taoist monks and alchemists of the time, the emperor began to experiment exclusively on his harem. Of course, there was no elixir, and many specialists who were under the emperor knew it, but continued to bend their line only in order to receive fabulous riches for their scientific work as long as possible. And the work consisted in the following: collection of menstrual blood of innocent girls, which was processed in a special way for the reception of the emperor. That's why from all over China to the Forbidden City were literally brought in droves of female producers of this product. Besides, the girls brought in were fed only rainwater and mulberry leaves, so that any excretions would be as pure and energized as possible. Some of the subjects were deliberately abused and beaten, as it was believed that constant suffering could energize the potion. The emperor trusted his Esculapists and clergymen more and more, becoming more and more involved in the experiments every week. That is why 16 of the bravest concubines, tired of enduring fear, pain, and humiliation, conspired to terminate the life of the torturer in 1542. This happened in the year of Renyan, the 39th year of the 60-year cycle from which the conspiracy got its name. When the emperor entered the chambers of his beloved wife Duan and was resting alone, 16 brave girls burst into the room. Without weapons, but using their collective strength, they were able to twist Jiajing and pin him to the carpet. One of the concubines took a silk cord from a nearby curtain and pulled down the emperor's strong neck, but lacked the strength and skill to follow through. The emperor only fainted, causing the concubines to scatter, happy with their success. Jiajing remained unconscious until the next afternoon, and no one dared enter the chambers to disturb the emperor's rest. At this time, one of the conspirators, who was not involved in the attack, gave in to fear and told Empress Fang. The emperor was found and rescued. All of the female conspirators died imminently, and one of the most cruel executions of modern times was chosen, death by 1,000 cuts. Jiajing himself was so afraid of a conspiracy later that he pathologically did not trust his close associates, so for 2 decades of his truly terrible reign, he gained fame as one of the most cruel rulers of China. However, he did not meddle with his experiments with concubines anymore. He was afraid of repetition.